Hi everyone, finally we got to making this video for you about creating Leon packs. I had a lot of questions about them, so finally we do the video. We'll do it step by step. Oh, there is a background sound because the 3D printer is printing a new shroud for the EDF for my big jet. So it's coming, and now let's get down to business. Let's get down to making these packs. There will be a few steps which are quite important. I did quite a lot of those packs, so I learned some mistakes, and I hope you can have some experience about that. So I already printed the 3D parts that I designed myself. And these are from ASA plastic, which is stronger than ABS and also more resistant for UV, but the most important is stronger. It's stiffer and stronger than ABS, so I recommend that. And it's heat resistant to 100 degrees, so it's very nice. So I printed, I assembled already 3. We'll be building 4 packs today. Some more cells waiting here to be built, but this is later. And so we get started. These are, just to remind you, the strongest I found. It's called the Samsung 40T, and they deliver up to 100 amps, but I use about 50, maximum 80 amps during flight. Not constantly, of course. And this is 4000 milliampere hours, so they're quite strong. One cell weighs 70 grams. So this is one cell, 4000 Li-ion, and they charge exactly like LiPos, but only discharge to 2.5 volts. I never do that. I discharge to 2.8, which leaves me with 1000 milliamps left for another few laps if I didn't land correctly. So this is nice. And normally they're purple, but I changed the cover for transparent film because it's much stronger. The purple one is very fragile and it breaks super easily, and this is a shrink wrap transparent, which is much stronger, much stiffer. Okay, so we assemble the cell now. I always put the first cell on the right upper corner with the plus up. This is plus, this is minus. So plus up, and because we are creating a series, not parallel, a series pack, so then it means that we have to place them into the bracket alternating. So it's plus, minus, plus, minus, plus, minus, and this will be the place where the plus lead comes from, and here minus. But this will be later on. And now the top bracket with this crown-like corona. This is a very popular word now. Crown-like structure up, and of course on the bottom is the same. Crown-like structure at the bottom because it will fit. Now we press, and it's quite snug, it's quite tight fit, so it's a pack already, and there are gaps between cells for air cooling, which is super important, and this is I think this is one of the reasons why the LiPos are so unreliable, because they don't have a cooling of the inside cells, they're always overheated. And here every cell has excess airflow, which keeps them, in similar temperatures. And these crown-like structures these grooves are to match these teeth on the cover. It clicks in, and on the bottom plate it clicks in. After I click it in, I also use a little bit of CA glue to hold it in place, because I use Velcro from the bottom, and when I didn't do it, sometimes it can open, and it's not nice surprise. Even though it clicks quite hard, it's a super tight fit. And here, plus minus and the balancer coming from here. Okay, so now I already prepared these cells, but I will show you what I do. It's very important. This is something that took me a while. These are my soldering glasses. We will be soldering with a strong gun. This gun is 150 watt of power, but you can get them 250, 300 watt of power, and the more the better. It's very important because if you use a small soldering gun, you have no chance of soldering to these cells because their heat capacity is quite large, and you will just be not able to warm up the surfaces here, and the tin will not melt, will not connect to the cells, so it will be not successful. And the reason why you use a strong gun is that this gun has a lot of heat capacity, and it can very quickly heat up the cell without the cell top, without heating the cell itself, which is important because if you overheat the cell will be dead. It will be damaged. So now I'll show you how I do it. It's super quick. Just you need to have some practice. Oh, before I start, of course, a lot of guys do can do the spot welding. It's nice, but the problem with spot welding is that these strips are very thin. It's 0.2, I think, or 0.1 millimeter, very thin, and currents are quite high. So I think it would be reasonable to spot weld double layer of strips. So you have two strips conducting current. Here we are going with something else. I already prepared. We are using the copper strips, 1 millimeter thick on 5 millimeter width. So this is like copper cable, 5 square millimeters. So it's quite large, and this can conduct heavy currents. And we're not risking anything regarding overheating the strips. So I think more reasonable solution is soldering, and also it's very easy and it's cheaper because to buy a spot welder it adds to the cost of the pack. So it is more expensive, and soldering is way cheaper. This soldering gun costs 30 euro, I think, something like this. And the copper plates are super cheap. I'll show you how it looks in a moment, but now we will solder them. We will prep the ends of the cells because they have to be prepped, because otherwise it will be very hard to solder a metal strip when the cell is not prepped. So I do it this way. I didn't wash it, it's just straight from the box. I do it like this. I keep the soldering gun very shortly just to melt the tin. So you just make sure that you don't keep the soldering gun too long because you will heat up the cell. We don't want that. Just enough to melt the tin, and so you can see that it covered the area required. So look at this, pick and melt the tin. It doesn't stick, and now it sticks, and that's it. And here this part, the minus, is much harder because it connects to cell more directly and it's heavier. So we do again the same. Doesn't stick, it heats up, and now it sticks. That's it. You see, it's very quick process. Doesn't stick, and it sticks. And here the minus is harder. That's why you need a strong gun. And now it sticks. And this way it's prepped for soldering. Now we have to wait. Okay. And the other side the same. At first it doesn't stick, so don't push too much solder because it will drop. Slowly. And this way, if you touch the cell from the side, it's not even warm. We didn't heat it up because I'm touching the soldering gun maybe 3-4 seconds. It's maybe 5. It's not so bad. Okay. You see? Now it's ready for soldering, and it's maybe 30 degrees just at the very tops, and here of course it's cold in the middle, so we didn't damage the cell. This is 2mm soldering tin. Of course, if you use a thinner one, it's just way more work. This is the copper plate, 1mm thick, that I bought. It's cheap. It's way cheaper than spot welder and strips and nickel strips. And I just take scissors, or not maybe these scissors, these heavy ones, heavy duty scissors. I take the scissors and just cut 5mm copper strip. It goes quite easy. I'll stand up. If it's hard, then you can always press it down against the table. Just make sure that you don't go wider than 5mm, because my brackets are 5mm, but fortunately when you solder them, the brackets melt. So even if it's a little bit wider, it will squeeze. It will squeeze in. Now it's important to make it flat. Yeah, sometimes it's thinner, but I'm not using the ones that are very thin when I cut it not straight. But blacksmith. Okay. But in general, I'm trying not to fly above 50 amps. When I do the quick pass, low pass, I'm using 50 amps from them. Trying not to do more, sometimes 80 amps. And this way these cells will last long. Yeah. Important thing about, like tip about this soldering gun. Because it's very hot and there is a lot of work done, this peak wears off very quickly, and when it does and it gets dirty, it doesn't want to solder anymore. It's like the gun is hot but it doesn't work. This why sometimes you just need to take rough sandpaper or, I don't know, a file and sand it. So it's bare copper. I think this is made of copper, the peak. We scratch it a little bit and it should work now. And one more important tip: when you store it hot, you can never store it hanging like this, because the handle gets so hot that you cannot hold it. So always store it with the heated part up. Also, you need to prep the copper strip with tin, because you will not be able to solder properly. And I just do it quickly like this. Okay. You see, this soldering gun is super strong and super hot, and it works immediately. I've already made a mark of how long I need the strip to connect between cells. It's like probably 3.5 cm, maybe. Let's see. This is exactly 3 centimeters. So now you know. And I made a mark with the marker, 3 cm, and I just cut them. Pick, pick. And you need 5 of those for every 6S pack. We already have prepared the balancer cables. I noticed that the longer ones are more convenient because it's easier to connect to the charger. So these are 20 cm long extension cables for balancer, and the battery cables are 10 cm long, because in general 10 cm is a standard. I don't think longer is necessary. In general, you want to keep the leads between battery and the ESC as short as possible, because you get losses, and also you can damage the ESC, and the ESC often malfunctions when the distance between battery and the ESC is too long. And the reason is simple. The ESC, you all know Rami, that makes his own airliners. I watch him too, he's a very nice guy. And when he was building this Airbus, the latest one, he put the ESC on the wing and the long leads to battery, and I was so scared because I had some crashes and failures with this kind of system, because the ESC stops working mid-flight because the cable from battery to ESC is too long. And the reason why you cannot have too long cable is that you have to imagine that the current flowing in the cable is like water running in the pipe in the house, and the ESC is like a tap on the sink, and the ESC is closing and opening with MOSFETs, with transistors, this tap, and this makes the water stop and then start again. And try to imagine when you close the tap quickly in the house, sometimes you hear the bang, like a sound bang in the pipes, because the water stopped immediately. And this is what happens in the cable, but of course with very high frequency. And if the cable is longer, the strike of the current is stronger. So if you use very long cables from battery to ESC, you have to solder on extra capacitors on the ESC. If you don't do that, you might experience crash and failure. So always, when you have like, I don't know, half a meter cable between battery and ESC, solder on extra capacitors on ESC, because it will save you a lot of money and stress and time. Now, just not to confuse myself, I always put the red dot where the plus is gonna be. So I know that here is gonna be the plus. So on the other side, we need to connect batteries in this manner. Oh, this is too wide. Like so. Like so. So the current flows like this, like this, like this, like this. So here we need to put another strip. Okay, maybe here. This one is looking good. See, I just placed them on top. I take my trusty screwdriver and look how it goes. I slightly press it and just melt the tin. Melt, 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 and that's it. And now on this side, same thing. You press and let it go. You see, in this way, it's way easier, and because you prep the copper strips, the process itself is much faster now. And also you need a screwdriver, because when the tin is wet, you need to keep pressing the strip. One more thing, I didn't say, it's quite important actually. I didn't say about one important thing. On the plus side of the battery, this is plus, but the shell is minus. So here on the corners, even though there is 2 layers of plastic, if you melt with the soldering gun enough, you can get through this plastic and you can short this battery. So what I do is I bend these strips just slightly, so it goes over, like it's in the air between the cells. And this way, yeah, I do it always. And this way, there's a less chance of making it short. One advantage of soldering over spot welding is that you will have to solder anyway, because you have to solder the balancer leads. So you need a strong soldering gun, because otherwise you will have nothing to solder to it, maybe to the nickel strips. But there is soldering involved, so, and also the power cables you have to solder. So if you have to solder, so why not to solder everything? Okay. Prepping the cell and the strip ensures that the solder is strong, and you have this 100 amps flowing actually. Oops. Early. You have to understand how the current flows. So it flows like from plus to minus, or from minus, whatever, right? Down here, so just 2 strips on the top. One here, we bend them a little bit, and one here. Okay, a little bend. So from the top, plus only 2 here, 2 strips, and from the bottom to here, and 1 across. And that's it. And it's super strong, and now you can be sure that the high current is going through. Okay. Okay. We have to prep the cables also. You cannot expect the cable to solder when it's dry without thin. So we have to do it. We have to saturate it. Not too much, because then it will saturate all the way and it will be hard like a rock. So it won't be a cable, it won't be a usable cable anymore. Now we need to connect the balancer, and this is tricky. Every time you go for it, you need to be super focused, because you need to connect the proper sequence, proper order. This is 7 cables, so 6S, and I did it on purpose. I didn't make any holes here, any grooves. I could actually, because I didn't know in the beginning where I want to run the leads, and my project doesn't contain the grooves for the leads, but it's a very simple solution. We need 1 lead here for this strip, and 2 leads here through this hole for these 2 strips. So I just take the cutter, and cut a little V, and the cable goes in. And here, cut a little V, and the cable goes in. It's super easy. Maybe if I revise the project, I will do it again. Okay. And now from the bottom, it's always better to solder to the plus end of the cell, because plus end of the cell solders easier. So cut the V towards the plus, not the minus, because you need way less heat to melt thin on the plus. From the top to the top cells, you don't need to cut anything because there are channels ready to use. But from the top you need 3 leads to go down. So they will go transfer through here, here and here, and through this tunnel. So here the one goes out and leads to the plus. And these two go out from here to the plus, and from here to the plus. So we go. And now 20 cm balancer cable. Of course, first goes to minus, the black one, but it's too long, so we skip it for now. A second goes to the other side, and every cable going to the other side is the same length. So we don't need to trim it, we don't need to adjust it. We just put the first cable through, but now is the very important part, which I forgot so many times. This is the moment to take the cover in your hands and go with the lead through the hole, the middle hole. So we have in my hands the second cable, and second cable goes underneath the minus. All right. So minus is this one. So the same cell is here. We need to strip it a little bit. You don't need a lot because it's 1 amp current maximum, so it's nothing. And I don't prep these cables. I just hold it with screwdriver. And melt it in. And it's done. Very easy. First cable, second cable, third cable here, fourth cable goes down. So we go fourth cable, back, counting from black, from minus, through the hole, down. And here we already have a groove cut. We solder to plus. If the soldering gun doesn't talk to you, if it doesn't work, that means that it's dirty or it's corroded already. And it corrodes so fast. Like every 10 minutes I have to clean it. It's really fast, but that's okay. And now, before the last cable, last is plus, so before the last cable goes through the hole and this way, also to the bottom side. Yeah, it's tedious, takes time, but it's our hobby. Looks good, but I'm not so sure. So we make sure. Now we make sure. This is sure. Perfecto. The bottom is perfect. Now the top. We come back to the first cable. Oh no, the first cable will be the last to go, and the red one also the last to go. So the third one. 1, 2, 3. The third one we go through. Okay, and now we are kind of adjusting the length by pulling this. It doesn't have to be exact because they will bend under the cover. And we're holding the third one for sure, yes. Okay. And the third one goes here. So we cut it. Before you start charging this battery, always connect the battery checker before connecting to the charger to make sure that all the cells are seen, recognized, and also before you final assembly of the covers, check it with the battery checker. If the cable goes here to the other side, approximately, it doesn't really matter the length. If it's 1 cm shorter or longer, you can always bend it inside before covering the cover. It's no problem. I'm removing the isolation, I don't know, on 3 millimeter length. Oh, this is the only place where I soldered to of course plus minus, not plus with the minus, that I'm soldering to minus, which is a little bit more pain. But with a strong gun, it's beautiful. So now you see every cable we do with the same fashion. Only difference is the plus and the minus. The difference is important because first we put through, not to forget, because it happened to me many times that I forgot to put cable through, and then it's a pain. So now, it's important that now we solder power cables first and then the balancer cables. It's easier this way because, yeah, trust me on that. So we do it. We prep the power cables with we saturated it with tin, little bit, not too long, so they don't get hard too long, and we just solder. We start maybe with the red, and this is a bit tricky because you need to heat up the cable and the battery, the cell itself, and it's good when there is a little bit more tin on the cables, because it will nicely, but don't saturate it, just cover it. Oh. It will nicely melt around. Okay, and now place it in the middle, keep straight up and wait. And it's done. And it's super hard. On lipos, they say don't pull on the wires. And here, pull on the wires because it's super hard. It sticks super nice. And of course the cell is, because of its construction, is very strong. So again, here on the minus, a little bit more thin, just on the cable. So we have something to dip it in. And this one goes harder because the cell is harder in this place. Okay, middle, straight up, wait. You see, it takes 2 seconds or 3. No longer, no more, because you will damage the cell. Okay, and now we prepare the cables for balancers, and soon we are done with the pack. So the red one, we cut it to the length. Just have to guide it through the grooves, through the holes. Cut cut it. Always a little bit longer is better than a little bit shorter, as always. Alright, and now with this cable. And this is the only time when I prep the balancer cable, when I saturate it with thin, because it will just go easier. Otherwise, you might actually end up with unsoldering the main leads, power leads, which is not nice because it becomes a mess. Okay. Alright. Hold. Hold. Done. And now I come back with the battery checker. And it should work. It says 6S 343434343434. That's a success. So we're done. And few more tips. I use normal duct tape. I also have Kapton tape and every other tape, but I'm impatient, and duct tape works magic. So you need to isolate here a little bit so you don't have nasty surprises. You know, all the wires are isolated, but after soldering, the tin tends to be sharp sometimes. So I put just a precaution, a little duct tape over places that many wires cross. This gives me a peace of mind. It doesn't have to stick too well because it's closed. And it probably will never be open again. So I just stuff it in. Some nice duct tape. Let's do it properly. There is very slight chance that we will get short inside here. So now you have to guide, check if it's alright here. Yes, everything is good. You don't need to isolate anything here from the bottom. You need to guide all the cables through the holes as it's cut, as we prepare those little grooves with the knife. So imagine how it goes, approximately, okay? And now, with the cutter, there are like gates printed here with on the cover, but some of these spaces for gates are already occupied by strips or cables, so you need to remove those spaces. This gate between plus and minus stays, but this one goes, this one goes, this one goes, this one goes, and everything else stays. Yeah, we need to. Now we just need to guide those cables nicely in. Okay, of course this goes in here because we won't close it. And now approximately guiding cables so they are, if they're too long, just wind them somehow so they're not trapped, not like pressed because by the cover. Yes, you'll know how to do it. They bend nicely and they'll find their place. Okay. Approximately, it doesn't have to be perfect. It is already perfect. Okay. Looks good. And now look. Press, press, press. It's designed to click in it nicely. And now we click the bottom part, and of course, same thing here. Need to remove those gates on some of the channels, some of the grooves. This and this, you will know, it's easy to recognize. And we put the battery on the side of the table. And it locks quite tight, but if you use Velcro to hold the battery in the plane, you need to use super glue, CA glue, here in few corners, because it will open. Definitely it will open. But here we go. 6S cell is ready, and you just choose your connector. I use XT60 because I don't plan to use much more current than 60 amps, and it's a light connector and very popular in Europe. Very popular in Europe. I know in US it's not so popular, but here most of the guys use the yellow ones. So I use the yellow ones. And this pack is ready to fly for charging, and it will deliver up to 100 amps if you need, but it will get hot, so you need extra cooling. If you use up to 50 amps, not much cooling needed. Of course, not constantly, just in bursts, in quick flybys. And this weighs, with yellow connectors, it weighs 470 grams, which is way less than LiPos. And the expected life cycles is in hundreds. So it's a very reliable pack. And we already at our airfield had some crashes, and they really do well crashes. Sometimes the cell is a little bit bent, but these cells are much more rigid than LiPos, so I recommend to have a try. It's an adventure. And I heard that these cells are riding in Tesla cars, so not so bad. See you next time.